All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
Mother Goose, standing by.
Lock S-foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Hello there, and welcome to the Animal Squadron podcast. I am your host, HouseDog, and with me, as always, my faithful co-pilot, the person I love to fly around the galaxy with the most, Mother Goose. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How about you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm just excited to be here for part 2 of Empire.
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of fun talking about it in our first part, and I think we both have a lot we're really eager to talk about today, so this should be great.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to talk about, so let's just go ahead and dive in.
Let's do it.
I love R2.
But yes,
and then of course,
it is
R2
fun.
Flying out of the creature's mouth in the water. I was just like, flying R2.
There he is, once again.
And then just, Luke talking to R2 after he finally picks him up. And I just didn't notice this until now, is how Luke cleans R2's little eye.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to point out him charging R2-D2.
That's much later. I have many things in between now and then.
Oh, man. No,
well, not
you're
many
right,
things,
right.
Just a couple things.
Yeah.
Just my couple things are seeing the meditation chamber again.
Right.
And then like I said, I've wrote it down a couple times. I just love Han in this film. How, I think it's Leia falling in his lap and him holding her. He's like, "Sorry, sweetheart." I love him so much. And then I said I would talk about it later, and here it is. So Luke could sense Yoda, but he couldn't sense the Wampa.
I think a part of that is probably Yoda's much stronger connection to the Force than the Wampa.
And does it have to do with Dagobah? Because Luke points out that Dagobah is crawling with life forms. Or massive life form readings.
And he also points out that it feels similar.
Feels like a dream or something, yeah.
Yeah. And then he switches to feels like we're being watched before. But what I want to bring up is when he says that about how it feels similar, is he talking about Dagobah or is he talking about Yoda? Is that because baby Luke met Yoda, and then Yoda makes it clear later that he's been watching over Luke. And so while Luke may not have understood that was Yoda, he probably felt Yoda's presence quite a few times throughout his life.
I had never thought of that before. You are a genius, sir.
Thank you. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
So, yeah, I talked about Yoda and him being able to sense Yoda, but not the Wampa. And now that you explain that, it makes perfect sense. But I want you to talk about our good old buddy Kooky Yoda, because I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, I will talk about that.
I love Kooky Yoda. Kooky Yoda is what I aspire to be whenever I'm 900 years old. I mean, I hope I'm never that old, but if I could be, I want to be Kooky Yoda.
Listen, I'm living to 900, and you've got to live to 900. And he's gone. Kooky Yoda is very interesting. I know a lot of people really hated seeing, like, obviously we have the original trilogy Yoda, and then we go and we see a very different Yoda in the prequel trilogy, and but I think after everything he went through in the prequel trilogy to the original trilogy, it makes a lot of sense why he's acting the way he is. And he obviously knows exactly who Luke is, and he's also waiting till the right moment to reveal who he really is. Obviously, we see it later, but he's testing Luke's patience. So I think Kooky Yoda is very interesting. I'm glad we got to see him, and I really like the contrast between where we first see him to where he is when he is like Jedi Master Yoda just a few minutes later within the film. Okay, let me ask you this, because I only remember a couple moments from my very first watch through of The Empire Strikes Back, but do you remember how you felt when the first time when you realized that this kooky old crazy little weird thing was actually the Jedi Master Yoda?
I'm gonna disappoint you here because I always remember Yoda as being like Yoda. Like, I don't remember him being like a weird creature or anything, like him not being a Jedi Master.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, and like I really wish I could remember that moment where I found out that this kooky little guy was actually a Jedi Master. And something I wanted to just point out was there's an iguana in the background while they're first talking.
Yes, there are many animals in this film that are of Earth.
Yeah, my note is just Earth Lizard. That's all I wrote was Earth Lizard.
I like that you wrote Earth Lizard and not iguana.
Thanks. Well, at first I was like, wait, is that at first I thought it was called a gecko, and I was like, no, geckos are very different. So I looked it up later before we started recording.
I'm so glad that you're my partner in this podcast.
Thank you.
But no, I love Kooky Yoda. He's fun, and I thought he was needed. Next thing I want to talk about is 3PO being just the ultimate intimacy blocker of all time.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad because he was so excited because I can't remember exactly what he fixed, but he fixed something, and he just wanted Han to be proud of him. But of course, he, ruined their moment.
He did. Indeed, he did. We finally see Leia, like, drop her walls a little bit with Han.
Yeah.
We see Han not be, like, a complete douche canoe.
Right.
And I mean, he still is. But...
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And then... Okay, so we talked about how we watched on Disney Plus. How do you feel about seeing Ian McDermott as the Emperor when Vader talks to the Emperor?
I was okay with it, honestly.
I was too. As far as like that stuff goes, I think it's fine because when I think about showing Star Wars to like my kids, whenever I have them one day, like, and I show them the movies, like it'd make more sense. It's like Force Ghost Anakin.
Right. Yes. No, you're completely right. It makes more sense. But I do also understand why people were upset with it in the first place. But I do overall think it was a better decision to change it than keep it.
But I don't think it looks weird in the film either. I think he looks like he belongs there.
No, definitely not. Yeah, for sure. And this is the scene, obviously, where Darth Vader finds out that this is Luke. It's Luke Skywalker. This is his kid.
I made a very specific note here. I said,
yeah.
How does Vader feel knowing Anakin's son is alive?
Yes. Okay, so I've got two notes on this. The first, just real quick, is I just want to point out how even Vader and Palpatine are distinguishing the difference between Anakin and Vader, because he doesn't say your son. He says Anakin Skywalker's son. Or this is Anakin Skywalker's son. But I think this is a very important moment for Vader because this is the first moment where he really, I think, gets hope of being free. Now, in his mind, he's still thinking as a Sith. He's thinking, okay, I'll go get my son. I'll turn him to the dark side. We'll kill Palpatine. I can be free. And while maybe his motives aren't great, it is still hope for him.
But can Darth Vader even feel hope?
Maybe not before this, but I really think this is the start of his journey back to the light side.
Or is it the start of Anakin coming back to the light side?
Okay, you're right. You're right. Good point. Good point. Yes.
Vader and Anakin are such a hard topic, and it's hard to figure out who's who.
Who is who? Yes, because again, we've talked about this multiple times. We view Anakin and Vader as different people, but technically, Luke is still of the same seed.
Yes, of course. But it's just hard to know who's talking in these scenes. Like, is Anakin talking or is Vader talking? And I think at this point, it's still Vader talking. Because I don't think Anakin would ever put his son in that type of position.
Right. I believe it is... I believe it's Vader as well. But Vader still views Luke as his son. And again, I think this gives Vader hope, which is... It is the first step towards Anakin Skywalker coming back.
Very well said, my good friend.
Thank you, thank you.
Just a couple quick notes here for me.
Okay.
I feel bad about R2 sitting in the rain.
Me too. Poor guy.
And then I want to visit Yoda's house. Kind of like I want to visit the Wampa Cave for like a half hour. I want to chill in Yoda's house for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, the big difference, though, is I want to chill in Yoda's house with Yoda. What's the point of going if Yoda's not going to be there?
I mean, you and I could go chill in Yoda's house together. Would that not be sufficient?
That would be sufficient. I am sorry, my friend. Forgive me.
Never. And then
but no.
This scene between Yoda and Luke it's a big scene because Yoda points out one of Luke's biggest flaws.
I'm sorry, you're talking about, this is while they're still in the house, correct?
Yes.
This is the one where he finally makes his reveal that he is Yoda and he says he doesn't have patience, correct?
Right, yes, of course, Luke doesn't have patience, but I think the bigger idea that Yoda was getting at with Luke is his lack of focus.
Yes.
And I think it all goes back to Qui-Gon.
All goes back to Qui-Gon, that son of a gun.
I know, but it's like, really Qui-Gon... And Palpatine is the catalyst for all these events, of course. But, yes. I mean, these other pawns in this chess game that we see, to quote Qui-Gon, your focus determines your reality.
Right.
And that's why we were talking about it before the show, but I'm more excited to get to the sequels now because of what this movie did for me with Luke. And that is the fact that Luke, he never has any focus, ever. He always is dreaming of adventure and these things that, according to Yoda, a Jedi does not want. And I mean, we've talked about the Jedi so many times in this show. But I just want to point out, like, one of Luke's biggest problems is his lack of focus and where he is at now, which is what Yoda says. And Ben fights with Yoda about that while they're talking.
Right. No, that is a really good thing to point out, and I think you're completely right. It is definitely one of, if not his biggest flaws. And it's something I guess we never really see revealed. Or not revealed. We never really see much character change there throughout the rest of the films. You
can see it in that scene directly. At the end of that scene.
Right.
Where Luke says, "I'm not afraid." And Yoda tells him, "But you will be."
Right.
Because what is Luke thinking of? Luke's thinking of, I gotta destroy the Empire. I gotta take care of my friends. I have to do all these things. I have to become this amazing Jedi because I am the only hope this galaxy has. And Yoda tells him, if you would just focus on where you're at, you could accomplish all of these things.
Which, that scene overall, and just the rest of the scenes we get with Yoda, I think are very important because while I still don't believe Yoda is necessarily where he needs to be in terms of the Force. We get to see a really clear contrast between where he was in the prequels and where he is now.
I completely disagree about Yoda, and I will tell you why shortly.
Okay. Yeah, I just... Well, I mean, we do get to see a little bit within the Clone Wars, Yoda realizing that, oh, maybe the Jedi aren't as great as we thought they were.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about not Jedi. I'm talking about Yoda and
Yoda specifically.
I'm talking about Yoda specific, my friend.
Okay, then we can get more into this whenever it comes up in your notes.
Yeah, it's coming sometime soon. Yeah, actually, very soon.
I actually, you know what? Now that I'm looking at my notes, I'm pretty sure I know exactly which moment you're talking about. So I think that's actually my next note. So we'll get to it soon.
Okay, good. Because we can jump there pretty quick. Because all I have is Han shooting the ground. I love that Han's idea of finding out what they're really in, whether it's a cave or not, is to just shoot the ground.
Right.
And then Leia telling Han whenever they're trying to escape the space slug, her telling him that she's not a committee.
Yeah.
I love that. And I just love their relationship in this film. And then just the space slug itself. It's not anything special or pretty, and it's obviously not real, but I love it.
And it sticks out so much, and it's just a great scene.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the space slug itself, the prop.
No, yeah. No, and when I say sticks out, I mean that in a good way. Like, it stands out, I guess would be a better way to say it. Like, it's just a slug in a rock, but like it really makes an impact.
It's just this worm thing, but everybody knows when you talk about the worm thing from Star Wars.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, before we get to the thing we were talking about earlier, I just love Backpack Yoda.
Backpack Yoda for the win. Yes.
I just like him.
Me too.
And then I'm reminded again, like I said, this for some reason this episode was packed full of prequel tie-ins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how in episode 3, Obi-Wan says that only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have Yoda dealing in absolutes whenever he's talking to Luke.
Yes. Yes, and that's why earlier I mentioned I feel like he has made some development, but he's still not where he needs to be.
No, if we're looking at Yoda, he is a terrible teacher. He is an awful teacher.
No, definitely. But he specifically, I don't remember the exact line, but he talks about where
they're talking about the dark side? Because that's what I'm talking about right now, is whenever it's directly after, like, Luke is running through the jungle of Dagobah and he's flipping and climbing and doing all those things, and Yoda's telling Luke about the dark side more because Ben only briefly told Luke about the dark side and its dangers. Yoda kind of goes into a little more depth about it, and Luke asks a little bit more questions, and Yoda just gives him the answer, there is no why. That's it. That's all he tells Luke about the dark side, is there is no why.
Yeah.
That's not very helpful for a kid who thinks he's the only one that can save the galaxy from tyranny.
Right. No, definitely. He definitely needs... I mean, 900... Well, almost 900 years living in a system where believing you are the ultimate good in the galaxy is not something you easily overcome. But the point I was trying to make is at some point, I can't remember exactly where, he mentions how his trust is directly in the Force. And I think that's a big change from where we see him in the him and just the Jedi Order in general in the prequels. We see it specifically in Obi-Wan's line where he says, my faith or my trust is in the Republic, in democracy, where it should be solely in the Force. And so I do believe there has been at least a little bit of character change there, but still not great.
No,
I think
he's still dealing and still teaching, and I mention it here in a bit. And we can talk about it then. But I really want to talk to you about the cave scene, because now that I'm older, I think I think about it a little bit differently.
So before we get too deep into the cave scene, I just wanted to point out that when I was a kid and I first saw Vader without his mask in the cave and it's Luke's face, I don't know why I didn't realize it was Luke's face. I just thought it was some random guy. And so going back and watching it now that I'm older, that scene is just so much more impactful, so much more powerful knowing that it is Luke inside the suit.
Right. I make the note that Yoda says, he tells Luke, he's like, you won't need your weapons.
Right.
And Luke asks him, well, what's in the cave? And he says, only what you take with you. Mm-hmm. And whenever, before I had watched this film, I was like, well, of course, since he took his weapons, he's going to encounter Vader. But I realized he's not talking about his weapons. He's talking about what he's taking in mentally, physically, spiritually, like his deepest thoughts and fears. That's what he's taking into the cave. And I had never realized that before until now.
Right. And, I think this is something we've mentioned before, but the original plan, I don't know if it was the original plan, but one of the first plans for the saga as a whole would have been about Luke killing Vader and then becoming Vader.
That wasn't until Jedi, though.
Yeah, you're right. But this scene in the cave, if they had gone that route, would have made fantastic foreshadowing for that.
I think it does lead to fantastic foreshadowing for that for Jedi. When you think about how we're introduced to Luke and Jedi, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, yes. But what I'm saying is, if they had fully gone the Luke donning the suit and becoming the new Darth Vader route.
I see where you're coming from, but the cave scene is
But yes, it still does make good foreshadowing.
I love the cave scene. I think, and you feel silly with these films. Whenever you get older, you're like, how does this film about this space adventure that's meant for kids, teach me so much about life as you get older? But it really does. And I think the cave scene really does that for you as you get older as an adult and as a person.
Yes, definitely.
Because, it's Luke realizing, yes, of course, it's foreshadowing that, yes, Darth Vader is Luke's father. That's the obvious message there. But it's also the route that Luke could take. Mm-hmm. And it's the route that we could all take in life. We all have that choice to become the Darth Vader of our own lives, or we can become a different person.
Right.
Because I think we all go into that cave in our own lives, and we can either see ourselves as the villain or the hero. And I think that's what Luke is doing in this scene is he's untrained. He doesn't know what's going on in the galaxy. He's trying to be this leader that he doesn't know how to do.
Right.
So it's easy for him to see himself become the villain.
Yes, definitely.
I'm ready to talk about bounty hunters now, if you are.
I'm ready to talk about bounty hunters.
I just like saying all the bounty hunters. That was it.
I do too, and I really liked the disgust of the Empire soldiers as they found out there were bounty hunters coming on the ship.
No, we get to see our good friends. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Dengar.
Yeah.
Is he there? Did I miss it?
I don't think I saw him either.
I'm upset.
How could they do this? I'm flipping a table now.
No, you're not.
The audience will never know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't.
No, but I just like seeing the bounty hunters. They're cool. But the next thing I really want to visit for a second, if we may not. This episode did a really good job of taking away all of Han Solo's coolness. Because Han Solo is only as good as the Millennium Falcon. I said it, I don't care. And guess what? In this episode, the Millennium Falcon is trash. It fails everyone whenever they need it most. And I think the Falcon and Han in this episode are a direct correlation of each other. Because we see Han succeeding in areas that we've never seen him succeed before. While the thing that he's always relied on the most, besides Chewbacca, is the Falcon.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. We get to see it won't go into hyperspace, and then there's the whole hiding on a Star Destroyer, which was great. It was a really smart plan. Worked out mostly if, Boba Fett hadn't also thought of it.
Yeah. No, but the next thing I have is about Luke and Yoda on Dagobah.
Yeah, that is my next note as well, and I think this is probably what I feel like stuck out the most to me this watch through.
I think this film defines Luke as a character more than Jedi does.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Because we really see. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, mine's more towards the end of it. Is there anything that you want to say in particular about his training right there?
Do you want me to go on about my things and see if they tie into yours?
Well, what I want to talk about is basically the parallels here between Anakin and Luke and the visions they see about the people they care about.
I am definitely not there yet. I have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
So like I said, we really get to understand Luke's perspective later in life because of this film right here. And I did not understand what they did to Luke in the sequel trilogy until this film.
Interesting. I am still very, very against what they did to Luke in the sequel trilogy. So what really stuck out to you here? Maybe might shift my perspective a little bit.
I mean, we can definitely talk about it more in the sequels, but like, if you really think about who Luke is in this movie, his character in the sequel trilogy really makes sense. Because yes, Luke gets more powerful in the next film, but he never changes. Luke does not change, my friend. He does not change from Empire.
Okay. All right. And, in terms of Luke's, character,
I'm not saying he doesn't develop. I'm just saying he does not change. He keeps making the same mistakes. He's always looking to the future. Or he's always looking to where he isn't.
That is a really good point, and we will talk about this very much. We'll talk about it a lot once we get to episode 8. My biggest problem is his views on the Jedi and their role in the galaxy, their connection to the Force. But we'll talk about that more once we get there.
Good, because I think I can change your mind in between now and whenever we get to your next note.
Okay.
So like I said, we really see Luke's perspective here and how he changes in the sequel films. Well, not how he changes, who he becomes who he is in the sequel films.
Mm-hmm.
My next note is about a line. It's one of my favorite lines from Star Wars, and it's from Yoda. And he says, "Luminous beings we are, not this crude matter." I love that line. I just love it. It's an important line to me, and I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. So my next thing is, Luke can't ever see past his failures. And this is when he's trying to lift up the X-Wing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, it's all going to make sense. If you rewatch, whenever we do the sequel trilogy, if you keep this thought in mind, it's going to make sense. Luke can never see past his failures. He can never get past them. He's always thinking either about the future or about the past. He's never in the present. And that's why Yoda tells him, Luke says, I can't believe that you move the X-Wing or whatever. And Yoda tells him that is why you fail. But I think that's a much bigger message as to who Luke is as a Jedi. It's because Luke can't ever believe anything that's happening. And that's why he fails. I'm not saying he's a failure as a Jedi. I'm just saying that's why he's a failure in general.
Yeah. No, I get the point. I get the point you're trying to make. And honestly, my problem, Luke being a disheveled old man and just being angry at the world, that makes sense. Especially after seeing him start a new school, all his students get killed. Based on the character we've seen him, based on his character, it makes sense. A lot of my problems with the sequels lie in the fact that they did.
We're not talking about the sequels.
No, I know, but we were talking about how these moments here have changed your views on him in regards to the sequels. And I definitely get the point you're trying to make. My problem with his character still lies in other things they made, other decisions they made in terms of just the sequels as a whole and Luke's character in regards to some other things. But we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. My next thing is just Vader killing somebody and saying apology accepted.
Yep.
And then I love the fact that Han knows Imperial procedure because of Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. So they go out with the trash, and like you mentioned before, Boba is smarter than that and hangs around and follows them.
Right.
And then back on Dagobah with Luke. Luke is having visions just like Anakin did.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then the tie into that. Like I said, it's poetry. It rhymes. Yoda gives Luke the same answers he gives Anakin. Nearly.
Yes.
Close.
Very close. And yeah, so I really wanted to bring up, just like you said, the parallels between Anakin and Luke here. And just overall, how differently, while they do parallel each other, how differently things end up. And they both make a very similar decision in terms of doing what they must to save the people they care about. But the big difference here is Luke isn't being manipulated by Palpatine while Anakin was. But no, you're completely right.
But how much
Yoda
of Anakin's fall was manipulation and his own fault?
A lot of both.
I agree.
We don't really have that manipulation from Palpatine in Luke's story. So that's the whole point I'm trying to make, is he honestly, if Palpatine had been manipulating Luke from the beginning, this very much could have been a moment, just like Anakin had, where he tries to save his friends and falls to the dark side. And you're right, Yoda gives very similar answers, but I really wanted to point out how, I don't remember the exact line, but when Luke first brings it up, Yoda says, "You are going to destroy everything they have worked for." And he says something similar to that again later in the conversation, and that really connects to the prequels because he has seen, while he was not innocent in the whole situation and should have been there for Anakin and should have been there for Luke, he has seen this before. He saw Skywalker doing what he had to do to, or viewed what he had to do as good to save the people they care about. And with Anakin just destroying everything, the Jedi Order, the Republic. And so we really, when Yoda says that line, "You're going to destroy everything you've worked for," it comes from experience. He's seen this before.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the flaws of Yoda.
Oh, yes. Yoda is very much a flawed character. We've said it before, and we will say it probably again in many episodes. The Jedi needed to die. The organization as a whole needed to be destroyed.
I don't know about die, maybe revamped.
I don't think the Jedi Order would have changed without something so drastic.
Either way, I want to know how you feel about seeing Cloud City, seeing our friend Lando.
Okay, well, I have one last line before we get to Cloud City.
Well, please tell me.
And oh man, I'm sorry. If this might actually be after, but I'm pretty sure Luke obviously takes off, and Obi-Wan and Yoda have their conversation of, this is our last hope. And Yoda says, no, there's another.
That does not happen for a very long time.
Okay, then we can talk about it later. Sorry, my notes, the way I keep my notes are basically, it's almost more like an outline of the film so that I can keep track of where we are, but sometimes I forget to write things down.
It's okay. All we've seen so far is Cloud City and met Lando, and that was it. But I'm not super big on Cloud City. I mean, yeah, it's cool and everything, and seeing Lando's fun. Love Lando. But I guess the next big point is Yoda again. And it's where we get to see Ben again on Dagobah. And, you know, Luke is questioning all these things. And Ben says, you know, because Luke asks, he says, well, will my friends die? Or something along the lines of that. And Ben says, even Yoda can't see that future. And my question is, if Yoda can't see that, what can Yoda see? Because it seems to me that Yoda can't see anything.
Yeah, and that brings up a whole conversation of how of time and how it flows. Is it a set path? Because if it's a set path, then you could actually see the future and what is going to happen. But if it's not, then all you're seeing is possibilities of what might happen.
Right, but it doesn't even seem like Yoda can see the possibilities.
Right. Which, I mean, arguably, the Skywalkers had a stronger connection to the Force. And that's why we get things where, you know, Anakin is seeing Padme dying, and Luke seeing his friends as they are captured and tortured on Cloud City.
Yeah. Did you ever notice that Yoda has a necklace?
Vaguely. Like, yes, but it never really stuck out. Does that make sense?
No, I agree the same way. It just stuck out to me this episode. I was like, what is that necklace he has?
Yeah. I'm sure it's some super important thing that's mentioned once in something, a book, or that, you know, something that wasn't important but was made important later. Which I am not complaining about. Star Wars does that a lot, and I think is really great that small stuff gets expanded upon, I guess. Okay, now we're at the point where Luke's leaving, right? To go to Cloud City?
Yep, I'm there. I'm caught up with you.
Okay. This was my biggest problem with Yoda. I do have a lot of problems with Yoda overall, but Obi-Wan says Luke is our only hope, and Yoda says no, there's another. That is in reference to Leia. But they've had this whole conversation of should Luke go, should they not? When Leia's on Cloud City, like Leia is this other hope, and she's in danger of getting captured, potentially killed, or turned to the dark side by Darth Vader right now. Like, she's even closer to Darth Vader than Luke is, and yet she is their other hope. I just think Yoda's reasoning is flawed there.
This is like probably one of the only times I will defend Yoda, but I don't think he's wrong.
Well, okay, like, he is right that Leia is the other hope.
But you have to think about it.
Vader
doesn't
know.
She's in danger, but Vader doesn't know.
No, that is a very good point, but I mean, what if she got killed in the fight, or...
Well, then she dies.
And then she dies. There is no hope. Like, if she is their other hope, I guess.
But Mother Goose...
I don't know, it just really stuck out to me.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Rebellions are built on hope. And yeah, I mean, if she died there, we would have never got Ben. There'd be no sequels. That was more of a joke, but I just think he should have been a little more worried about her instead of like putting faith when she very potentially could get killed in this situation. Because as we just stated, he can't really see that far. He doesn't know she's going to make it out.
My counterpoint to that is I just want to know what happened at Vader's lunch.
Me too.
I know. I just want to be able to sit at that table with Vader and Boba and Han and Leia and Chewie and Lando. I wish I could be a part of that lunch.
Did they serve sandwiches?
No, it looks like they had some pretty good stuff on that table.
If I'm being honest, I didn't actually look at the food.
I did, because I'm a nerd.
Nice.
Now and then, just my next thing is about how Vader was so smart in all of this and understanding how the Force works, and how Han mentions that they never even asked him any questions. They just tortured him for no reason.
Yes, that was my next note as well.
And it's another shadowing
sucks.
of Solo. No, of Solo.
Yeah.
Whenever Han and Chewie first meet.
Mm-hmm.
How they're both in a cell again.
Yes. No, that's great. I feel bad for Han that he just got tortured just to bring Luke, basically.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about carbon freezing?
Let's talk about carbon freezing.
So Darth Vader already knew it would work because he used it in Clone Wars with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
Yeah. I think it's really funny, but he obviously isn't just going to go on a long, detailed story about, oh yeah, me and my old Jedi Master and Padawan did this trick during the Clone Wars.
Exactly. But it's still Clone Wars.
It's still Clone Wars.
So my next thing is, like, before the big I love you. Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask you, why did Vader stop Boba from shooting Chewie?
That was my next note, too. Okay, Anakin knew Chewie, right? In the Clone Wars?
No,
they had some interaction. They didn't.
No.
Okay, I could have sworn they did.
Ahsoka did.
Ahsoka did. I knew that for sure. Yoda did, obviously. I don't know. I literally, in all caps, my note just said Vader saves Chewie.
Is it because he was saving 3PO?
That's a good point. That is a very good point. I could see it. I could definitely see that.
I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those Star Wars things that we'll never know.
Possibly. Or we'll get a book 5 years from now going in depth on why that happened.
Or there is a book out there and we just haven't read it.
Neither of us know about it. Yeah. Yeah, no, that moment really struck out to me because it is one of the few moments that we see Vader show mercy.
Well, he physically grabs Boba's gun and
pushes it down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in the moment still thinking that they had at least met at some point. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe he remembers and just maybe that was a moment of Anakin slipping out. But you're probably right. He probably was just trying to save C-3PO.
Maybe. I honestly don't know. And I want to know. But maybe it's just one of those Star Wars things that we don't get to know.
Yeah, and that's okay. That is okay. Not everything needs an answer. I think media and stories are better that way because you get to fill in those gaps yourself.
I agree. So during this scene of just the carbonite scene, did you notice Vader's breathing in the background?
I didn't know.
I did, and this was one of the first times I had noticed it. Was his breathing is constant during that scene.
Interesting.
It's always there. It gets, in some parts it's louder, in some parts it's quieter.
It's quieter. It's kind of like, it's probably, most clocks, they tick, but your brain kind of filters that noise out. Right. Unless you're specifically thinking about it. So that's probably what's going on. But that's really interesting.
What is your next note, my friend? Because I'm up until like Lando and Vader talking.
Man, honestly, I have a lot I can talk about within these next few minutes, but my next note isn't until Luke and Vader are fighting.
Oh, okay. Then I've got a lot of stuff.
Like I said, the way I take my notes, it's more of like an outline for myself so I can remember the order of the film. But yeah, there's a lot to say about the Carbonite scene, the I love you scene. What do you got next? When they're talking about
I'm up until Lando and Vader talking about the deal
and how he's altering it. Gotcha.
Yeah, that was my next line that I took from this movie was, just Vader saying, "Pray I don't alter it any further." I love that from Vader.
Right.
Vader gets a lot of character in this movie that we didn't get to see in the first one,
which is fantastic because it really fleshes out that merciless killer that Vader is. This, throughout the first one, we learn that like Vader is this feared / respected figure, but we don't really see it in A New Hope. But we really get to see it in this one, which is fantastic.
Yeah. No.
Sorry. When you mentioned the Carbonite scene, you were meaning when we first saw the Carbonite when he ordered Lando to test it on Han. I was thinking of the actual, they're standing there, Han's about to be put into Carbonite.
Ah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, what is your next note, my friend?
It's about Boba. Just about how we hear the spur jingle, but it's really just his armor making that noise.
Oh, yes, yeah.
As they're walking down the hallway with Han, frozen in Carbonite. And how we see that later in Mando.
That spaghetti western influence.
I love it. I love it so much that we see it so many years later.
I do too.
My next thing is about Leia.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
What about her?
It's a very famous line, my friend, that we think Admiral Akbar says. But
okay.
It's Leia telling Luke that everything is a trap. And she says, "It's a trap. It's a trap."
Right. Yes. Which, I mean, Admiral Akbar does say later in the next film.
Right. But I always thought, I'm being 100% honest, I thought Akbar was the only one that ever said that.
Ever said it. Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily thought that as well, but that line really did stick out to me here. This watch through.
I'm up to Luke and Vader meeting now.
Okay, really, my main note that I want to mention here is the fact that Luke is really fighting. Like, he is giving it his all, and Vader is just playing with him.
Oh, I have a couple of things before that.
No, just their whole interaction. That's what really stuck out to me.
Well, I have how, yes, you and I see Vader and Anakin as different people, but tell me that was not the most Anakin Skywalker entrance to a duel ever. This man literally had the lights dimmed until Luke walked in, and then he did a voiceover, and then he turned the lights on.
Yeah, that was very Anakin Skywalker. And while I do feel like they are separate people, there's still that connection. Vader's past is Anakin's past. Vader shared Anakin's upbringing. Vader shared Anakin's Jedi training. Vader shared Anakin's time within the Clone Wars.
Yeah, but I mean, another thing that, like, we talked about it in our episode 1 show, but like, I really feel like this duel is just really elegant. Like, the way they fight at the beginning is just really, like, it's what you think of, like, old sword fighting.
Yes, yeah, this was probably the most beautiful of the original trilogy's lightsaber duels. It, like you said, it's very elegant. It's choreographed very well. It's not. I mean, it's nothing like the crazy enhanced fighting they do in the prequels, but it was a good fight.
No, I agree. And you get to that point of like Vader just toying with Luke. And my next note is about how Vader just like throws stuff at Luke whenever they're like way into the inner bowels of like Cloud City, and he's just force throwing stuff at Luke.
Yeah. And at one point he's not even moving. Like it's all like he's just holding his lightsaber up in a defensive position, and it's all just with his mind.
Right. And the next thing I have to mention is, of course, the character holding the Camtono. At that point, it was just an ice cream maker running through Cloud City.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me too.
And then I have another flashback to the prequels.
Okay.
It's R2-D2 dragging 3PO through the Falcon, just like he drug him through the Coliseum in Episode 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can't be Star Wars if C-3PO isn't being dragged around by R2-D2.
This is such a drag.
I really appreciate Lando, obviously, saving Leia and Chewie and turning against the Empire, you know, telling his citizens, like, hey, the Empire's coming, get out while you can. Like, Lando is still Lando. He's the same Lando we see in Solo, but he's changed. He's matured a lot, and he cares about his citizens.
No, I agree. Lando has become a lot more responsible than who we met him, or who he was when we met him in Solo.
Yeah.
And then, during Vader's speech to Luke, while he's out on the edge of the walkway, I thought it was interesting how Vader told Luke, after he tells him that he's his father, of course, we don't need to beat a dead horse. Everybody knows the line.
Right.
But he tells Luke that the Emperor has foreseen Luke defeating him.
Mm-hmm.
I had never caught that before.
No, it's something I had caught, but it just really stuck out through this watch through. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in our last episode, the alternate ending of the episode 3 video game, how Anakin kills Palpatine, and like Anakin could have beaten Palpatine, but because of his mental barrier, it stopped him. But Luke again hasn't had that years of emotional manipulation. He wasn't a slave as a child. He didn't have the indoctrination into the Jedi Order and all the problems that came with that. And again, he wasn't manipulated by Palpatine literally since birth. He had exactly what he needed to beat Palpatine. He had what Anakin never did, and that was freedom, his ability to make his own choices.
Would you say that Luke had freedom, though?
I mean,
have you watched Episode 4, my friend? Would you say that Luke was a free person?
Here's the thing. Luke grew up on a poor farm. He worked hard, but that is a very different upbringing than literally being
a
in
slave.
slavery.
I agree with.
Yeah.
I see what point you're making. I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. And Anakin really only knows, arguably, one true moment of freedom, and that's not till the next one, which we can talk about then. But like I said, Luke had what Anakin didn't.
I just love how Luke would rather fall to his death than accept that Darth Vader is his father.
Yeah, I mean, that was life-shaking. He believed for a while now that Vader had killed his father, and the person that he really trusted and admired lied to him. That's big.
Right, but I want to bring up, so this next scene that happens, well, it's the same scene, but next big thing that happens after Luke falls is he's hanging on that wire, or that antenna. And Ben told him when he left Dagobah, he said, if you go to face Vader, I can't interfere. And while Luke is hanging on that wire, the first person he calls out to is Ben.
Ben. Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm talking about whenever I say that I understand sequel Luke more now that I've watched this film. Because he never learns from anything, and he never pays attention. He just doesn't.
Yeah. And I think
because Ben directly tells him, like I said, Ben directly tells him, I can't help you if you do this. If you're going to not give up on your training, but if you're going to abandon your training at this time to save your friends, I can't help you. I can no longer step in and be an influence on your path because of what you're choosing to do. And that's the problem with Luke.
Yeah.
Just like Anakin.
No, that's a really good point. And then we get to see him call out to Leia, and we see just a little bit of hinting that there is a connection there through the Force.
Right. Yeah, no, that was my note, was that he calls out to Ben first, and then he thinks about calling out to Leia, which was interesting. And then we see Vader reach out to Luke through the Force. And I thought it was cool how we see that those connections, those family connections that we don't know about yet, but they're all tied up there.
Yes, definitely. And then my next note is while they're on the Falcon.
Yeah, no, all I have is just all of the Imperials' faces after the Falcon escapes, and Vader just walks down the deck. And
I was so sure he was going to kill someone there again. And
yeah, you would think he would, but I think he was just so done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times have they lost the Falcon now?
Well, I mean, we think of what Luke's going through, but we don't ever question what is Vader going through right now.
No, definitely. And that is why I really think watching it 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, the machete order works so well, because we get that reveal that Darth Vader is the father, but it kind of ends with them all looking into space, really, as it fades to the credits, and we get basically the flashback of what's happened, and that really helps explain and contextualize a lot of the emotions that everyone is feeling. But I did want to point out that Luke calls out to Ben again while he's laying in the bed on the Falcon.
Well, he does while he's sitting in the cockpit of the Falcon. He asks Ben why he didn't tell him.
Yeah, which I think that's a little later, I believe, because there's also another Luke and Leia kiss that I had never realized right there when he's laying.
It was
in the
a
bed.
quick peck.
There's brother and sister though.
Yeah, but we're from the South, so that kiss wasn't as awkward as the one on Hoth. That kiss was okay for the one that happens on the Falcon is okay. That's like a family kiss. The one that happens on Hoth is a weird kiss.
Listen. The one on Hoth, I completely agree, was much worse. But I would never kiss one of my family members like that. Like the one on the Falcon. Okay. I wouldn't just give a family member a quick peck. It's just because he was laying
down. I think it was because he was laying down.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I just literally just wrote in my notes, for both the kisses, I have gross and then gross for the second one. Those are my notes.
Hey man, if anybody's gonna kiss my sister, it's gonna be me.
And then I think my next note was, I like, again, the running gag about the hyperdrive failing. And and not working on the Falcon, which I know we kind of already mentioned they got away, but that is, I believe, the third time that happened in the film, and that one actually made me laugh. Is more just like, of course, again.
I think one of the big ideas of Empire is that it strips all these characters away from everything that they've relied on in the first film.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, that is a very good point. I just have one last note. How about you?
I'm on the last scene.
Okay, go take it away.
I like seeing Leia back in her white robes.
Mm-hmm.
And then just Luke's hand. I just always thought that was cool.
You know, this is the first... I guess I'd never really paid attention to it. This is the first time that I noticed that it was like a synthetic skin around the hand. I guess I was just thinking it was the same as Anakin's hand, where it's literally just a robotic hand.
No, it's like a totally
Yeah, it's like a synthetic skin, which is awesome, and it really shows just another thing that shows the improvement in technology between the prequels and the originals.
I agree. Because a lot of people have problems with that. We've talked about it before on the show.
Yeah. And my last note is they are so far away from the galaxy. Like, if they're far enough that they can see the entire galaxy, they are so far away.
But what galaxy is that?
I am pretty sure that is the Star Wars galaxy. Well, I don't know. It might have changed in Disney canon, but I remember reading something talking about. I think it was I was reading the Yuzhong Vong War, whatever that series is called. There's an outpost outside of the galaxy, very near where Luke and Leia were at the end of Empire. It might not have been the Yuzhong Vong War story, but I do remember reading about that outpost somewhere else. So it could technically be another galaxy, but I'm pretty sure it's the galaxy that it takes place in.
I don't care. It's a beautiful cinematic.
Yes, it does look really pretty. Okay, do you have anything else? Any other notes?
No, man, that was episode 5 for me.
That was episode 5. Well, we do not have any listener questions this week, but if any of you are interested in sending in a question, you can email us at animalsquadron@gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your conversation or your questions and be able to talk about them and have a conversation with you guys. Okay, yeah. I think that is all for the week.
That's all for me. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Because I haven't done that in a while.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You can find me at MotherGoose27. You can find me on YouTube and TikTok. On my About page, you can find all my other social media links on my About page, on my YouTube channel. And then, I guess while we're plugging, I would like to plug the Elements of a Great Adventure podcast that I just started. The first episode is now available on Spotify and iTunes, or I guess Apple Podcasts is what it's called. It is a real play Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It's a lot of fun. I'm really happy with what we've done, and you guys should definitely check it out if you can. How about you, HouseDog? Anything you want to plug?
You're the only thing that I ever want to get more media attention.
I really appreciate you. You're a real homie.
What can I say? I am the best host on this podcast, but I think it's time we get out of here.
Besides me. Yes, definitely. For sure.
Take us out of here, my faithful co-pilot.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate you guys, and we will be back in 2 weeks. For the Animal Squadron, this has been Mother Goose.
And HouseDog.
And we'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.